Mic check 1 2. It's the Y2K collector, and I've been hearing a lot of people um ask and discuss the concept of starting a collection now. Like, is it worth it in 2024 to start a video game collection? Does it even make sense? And I think that it all depends on how fast you're trying to grow your collection, what it is you're trying to collect, um, and what sourcing looks like wherever you are or whatever part of the country you're in, right? Starting off with the topic of speed, how fast do you want to grow your collection? So there's a lot of ways that you can grow a collection very fast. Like, if you don't have any particular genre in mind and you're just thinking quantity and not quality, you could get a whole box of games like this. This was actually a box of games that I picked up for free from a GameStop that wasn't able to basically accept these games from someone who basically went in and sold their whole collection. So, and this will happen at GameStops where they'll just give all the stuff that they don't accept for free. They'll either leave it on like the counter or on a shelf, and whoever walks in, they'll just say, "Oh, we're not accepting these. Whoever wants them, you can have them." So, if you're not interested in any type of quality, and you're just thinking of how many video games can I actually just amass, you could easily build a huge collection on next to nothing. If you're just looking to build a collection of sports titles, right? Because sports titles are typically just given away for free. Where you start to run into an issue is when you decide you want to, I guess, step your game up, no pun intended, and maybe go outside of the sports genre. And obviously, when you kind of pivot away from sports, or like kids games, that's when the prices start to increase. So let's say you don't necessarily want to collect a bunch of sports titles, but maybe you want to collect, say, every Lego game that there is, right? Lego games are super cheap, so you can still build a huge collection of Lego games without necessarily breaking the bank, right? So you have like the sports tier, then you have like the Lego tier, which is a little bit more, but then you have this other tier, which is kind of like this is what I would call like the filler tier, right? The filler tier is a tier of games that are fun. They have value, right? You still want to play them. They usually land within like the $5 to $10 range, but they're typically good games that people enjoy, games that people want to play. A lot of times they're bestsellers. They were mass produced in a large quantity. So those are games that you can also use to build your collection. So again, I think when it comes to collecting in 2024, at what speed are you trying to grow your collection? How fast do you want to build your collection? And when you think about that, that's ultimately going to determine, the types of games that you collect. Now, when you start to think about, games that are, a little bit more valuable, you start to think about things like, Fight Nights and Shadow Hearts. You start to think about GameCube games. Obviously, this is going to slow down the speed of your collection. And this is pretty much a lot of the games that I've picked up, I would want to say, since like late spring all the way through the summer, right? And so once you start getting into like this range, this is where the speed starts to slow down, right? And that's going to lead us into the types of games that you're into. What's your taste? Because taste obviously plays a factor into it as well. I grew up in, the 90s, the late 2000s, or early 2000s to late 2000s, and that's kind of reflected in the types of games that I like. That's why I do like Super Nintendo games, N64 games, Genesis games. a little bit of NES, right? That's going to be reflected in my collection, but you're also going to see a lot of PS2, definitely a lot of GameCube, because I actually, I got a GameCube when it first came back in, I think, like 2002 was when I got mine, or 2001. I can't remember exactly when the GameCube dropped, but I remember getting a black GameCube when it first came out. And to be quite honest with you, to this day, I still don't know what happened to that GameCube. There are so many like games and systems that I had that I just do not know what the heck happened to those things. Maybe I traded it in for a Dreamcast. I don't know. I honestly can't remember at this point, but the point of the matter is that, like, obviously when you start to think about genres and you start to think about what it is that you want to play, that's definitely going to impact you. And then, it's really just about your budget and what you're willing to kind of like sacrifice in order to create that budget for the games that you want to get. 2024 is going to be a really, really tough year, especially the second half of the year. So finding deals is going to be really, really important. A lot of the games that you're looking at here were buy two, get one free. A lot of these were picked up at thrift stores where the prices were extremely cheap. A lot of these were purchased with points that had accumulated, coupons, different things like that. And, the total value of a lot of what you see here, I probably paid like a fraction of what it actually costs. Don't get me wrong. There were some games that did come in at pretty much market value, but in large part, a lot of these games were really purchased at an average of, 40 to 45% off. So once you start to like really think about, your budget, how fast you want to grow your collection, your taste and things like that, that's when a lot of that comes into perspective into 2024. The one thing that I will say to a lot of speculative collectors, please keep in mind that the prices of these games are going down in a lot of cases. They're not necessarily going up. A lot of these games peaked in value about 2 years ago. Most of these games peaked in value 2 years ago. And that's not just these games. That's I would say that's like video games in general. We saw them like really tap out like early 2022, like 2021. That's when things were at their absolute highest of highs. Now, there are some games that are still continuing to go up, right? But because I'm talking in general, we've seen the rush is over, and we're starting to see where a lot of prices are starting to come down because availability is back. Now, GameCube is still highly sought after. People are always going to want GameCube for whatever reason. The Wii is starting to see a little bit of a rise. I think a lot of people, for the most part, are over like Super Nintendo and Genesis. I think like people have kind of like, that's ran its course. I feel like when people think about the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis, they automatically feel priced out. So I don't even think a lot of people go for it. When it comes to the PS2, it's a mixed bag because I think a lot of people know that there are still a lot of quality PS2 games that you can get without breaking the bank. But we are definitely in the era of like PS3 and Xbox 360. That's definitely the era that we're in now. People are on the hunt for 360, and if they're not on the hunt for PS3, they're going to be on the hunt for it soon. I think PlayStation 1 has kind of entered the same realm of like Super Nintendo in terms of being one of those systems that people automatically assume are just too expensive to collect for. So, like I said, just keep in mind in 2024 that the average price of a lot of these games is going down. So if you are going to enter the hunting world, if you are going to start engaging in the hobby, please just keep in mind that you want to do your game hunting smart. eBay is not the way to go today for everything. There are some things that you will need to eBay. A good example is import games. If you're looking for import games, 9 times out of 10, there are certain import games that you're just not going to be able to find in stores, just because there's just no one's carrying them. I know, because right now there are PAL games that I'm looking for that I know I'm not going to find in most of the game stores that I go to. I definitely know I'm not going to find them at GameStop. So you kind of have to know how to use the internet, how to use your local game stores, how to use big box stores like your Best Buys, your Targets, your Walmarts, and of course, how to use your GameStops. And I think that's the biggest thing, is knowing how to do it. So would I start in 2024? Sure. I think it's still a good time to start. I think now's a good time to start because, like I said, prices in general are going down for a lot of games. But that could just be what I'm seeing in my neck of the woods. Let me know down in the comments if any of this rings true in your neck of the woods. Let me know if you're seeing or noticing any truth to it. I'm interested to know your thoughts. Just Y2K Collector. Take it easy.